Standby.
Welcome everyone to our Roanoke College Alumni Association NOKELive series. Today is our 5th live event, and as you all know, we will continue these weekly live events to include various webinars, film and book discussions, and much more. For more information, you can always go to the Roanoke College website, roanoke.edu/alumni, and visit our alumni hub, where you can find lots of information about these and other events. I am Sally Logan Walker, and I hold the position of Director of Alumni and Donor Relations here at the college. It is my pleasure to host today's webinar. Before we begin our presentation, I want to cover a few logistical points. We would love to know who is viewing and joining us today via our YouTube channel. So please use the chat feature and let us know you're on. And also, you can use the chat feature to present any of your questions for today's presenter. She has assured me that she would love to address as many, and if not every question that we have today. We will attempt to cover as many of them as possible. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on both the Alumni Hub on our website and this YouTube channel beginning tomorrow. So today's discussion is entitled Opportunity in Crisis, Starting and Finding a Career in a Pandemic. Now it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Ms. Toni McLaughlin, who serves the college as the Director of Career Services. Toni, I turn our event over to you.
Thank you, Sally, and hello, everyone. Welcome, and I'm glad that you have the opportunity to participate with us today. It's my pleasure to introduce to you one of our alums and our speaker for today, Barbara Sue, otherwise known as Susie Ferris. I've known Susie for many, many years when she lived here in Roanoke. She has supervised interns for us upon occasion, both here in town and remotely from out in the Bay Area where she is now. She serves as the CEO of SciMed Partners, which is a life sciences and emerging technologies consulting organization. She's also a co-founder and former CEO of Innovamedics Incorporated, which is a wireless medical device startup, and they have applications in emergency medicine and trauma and sports and fitness. And then most recently, she's gotten into another endeavor as co-founder of Vidar Medical, which focuses on monitoring space with critically ill and the COVID-19 patients. She's got lots of marketing background. Her experience crosses over into many industries, and her clients are also not just there in the Bay Area where she's located, but they are all over the place. So it's with pleasure that I introduce to you Susie. She does have her MBA from Regis University in Denver in market strategy, and also BA from Roanoke College with additional postgraduate work at the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania and at Stanford. So Susie, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, and we look forward to hearing what you're going to share with us today.
Right. First, let me give Toni McLaughlin as the most unappreciated person in career anywhere. Toni has been a longtime friend, but also just has an exceptional background in helping guide students and alums through the more challenging aspects of finding a career, and especially right now. So Toni and I were talking a 3 weeks ago regarding these challenges, and a lot of students and alums, you could see this from the back end as a very negative time, or you can embrace it and see it as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for change, an opportunity for innovation. So I've got a PowerPoint. We'll run through the PowerPoint. This is what the PowerPoint's going to talk to you about. Number one, we're going to get a look at the current situation. What's actually going on out there? What's true? What's not true about the situation? And we're going to cover 3 types of ways at looking at the world. And raised on the East Coast, I come out of a family of entrepreneurs. I'm part of the Amrine family in Virginia. 99 years of entrepreneurship. Out of 10 grandchildren, 7 of us are entrepreneurs. And most of us are running multiple businesses. So I grew up with not a lot of fear about taking a chance, about being proactive, about just going for it. And so let me put the slide presentation up. Wait a minute, I've got to share the screen first. Okay, so let's cover a little bit about the environment I've been in. Growing up on the East Coast, it's a different type of environment. It's a different type of entrepreneurship, all valuable. But California is the world's fifth largest economy. We're ahead of Germany. We have 1/3 of the world's venture capital comes out of Silicon Valley. We are your most diverse state. We're your most populous state. And contrary to popular belief, we are not all a blue state. We're about 45% red, about the balance, a blue state politically. We are in the diversity of the economy, the diversity of the population has created to some pretty dramatic results for the US. And that's about me. A lot of what I'm doing now is a balance between science, medicine, and we're doing a lot in clean, green, and sustainability. That is not to say that I limit myself to those specific industries, because I do investment reviewing every Friday morning and in between for groups of angels and venture people to across a number of industries, from gaming to ed tech to financial tech to you name it, I'm reviewing it. So that gives me a broad background. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so the environment that I've lived in for the last 20 years, we like to refer to, it's the last great meritocracy. There, with the few exceptions, the playing field, everybody gets a shot, everybody gets an equal run at it. We welcome diversity, we welcome education, we welcome innovation. It is not as important to know when you graduate or what your major was as can you do it? What can you bring to the table? Can you do it? So that we look at the value proposition versus, say, a specific major or a specific year. So first of all, welcome to the pandemic. This has been the most disturbing year of our lives, and we're going to cover some things regarding the pandemic. Right now, at this time, we have 40 million Americans unemployed. You could look at that figure and you could say, oh, or you could look at the figure and say, where can I get an opportunity to expand my horizons and find daylight in despair? This is the most number of people we've had unemployed since 1929 to 1931. So here's this morning's body count. 9 million, over 9 million cases globally, almost 5,475,000 deaths in the United States, 2.3 million cases, 120.5 Americans are dead. We are 4.25% of the world's population. We have 25% of the cases and deaths. I just got a text from, I'm on the New York Times alert. The European Union is going to prevent Americans from traveling to Europe based on our inability to control the pandemic. So it's our most consequential event of our lifetimes. I grew up with hearing about the great flu epidemic in 1918. My grandmother, my grandparents lived in Baltimore, and my grandmother lost her hearing in that flu epidemic. They survived, but you heard about it. The fact of the matter is this pandemic was preventable and it was controllable. To give you an idea, it was preventable in that the United States government prior to 2020 had a standing pandemic response team. George Bush made some very dramatic improvements to the process for preventing the type of pandemic we have. That was set aside. Everything was set aside. The pandemic was controllable. To give you a perspective, 2015, 2017, the world had another pandemic, the Ebola crisis. We had, remember the figures that I just, we had 11 cases in the United States. We had 2 deaths. Everybody else recovered. 2 nurses died. We had 2 deaths, 11 cases. In this case, nobody was prepared. Everything broke. It didn't matter what industry you're in, nobody was prepared. I come out, I was vice president of the largest emergency services company in the United States. I will say probably EMS was prepared. During 9/11, it was my company that sent in the medical help to New York City. But the 911 system during that time never went down because we prepared for change. We prepared for the contingency that something was going to happen. It did. We did not go down. However, almost to an industry, nobody was prepared. It's forcing change, and you can either resist the change or you can embrace the change. And the people that are going to survive, businesses, academics, government, the survivors will see there's an opportunity in crisis. And I'm here to tell you, we ain't going to go back. So our lives have changed. We have to get it through our heads. And wherever you live in the United States, your life is never going to be the same, period, full stop. We're all exhausted. This gal is an emergency room RN. She lost her father and mother 2 weeks prior to this photo. She lost her dad, her mother or dad, the previous night. This woman got up and pulled a full shift in the emergency room the next day. The exhaustion of people on the front lines is incredible. And I talk to them day after day after day, but we're all exhausted. So truth matters, facts matters, right? This is my friend Vince. He's an ER registered nurse. You don't cure, you're not going to cure it with Clorox, friends. So what's going on now is the virus is an animal to human viruses. Viruses are around us, bacteria is around us. Some is more easily transferable than others. This is like H1N1 and SARS. The problem with this virus is it's much more contagious, easier to spread, and is harder to control. Yes, the most severe, a severe form came from China, but a more severe form came from Europe. That's why New York had such a time. H1N1 was the swine flu. It jumped from pigs to humans. SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, came from the Middle East. So it's not attributable to H1N1 came from pigs in the US. So it's not confined to just one nationality, one area of the world, or one specific thing. So here's fiction. Pandemic's under control. It is not. We'll have a vaccine in the fall. We will not. We can reopen. We should not. Clorox prevents it. UV light stops it. Let me turn that down. Tests for everybody. We're still not testing. We should be testing about 1 million, I think, a clip a day. We're not testing, but maybe 1/10 of that. Vaccines for everyone. There is no vaccine. Everything's great. Everything is not great. So right now, about 20 to 25 states are showing increases. We're not under control. The vaccines take 12 to 18 months to develop in field, and there are thousands of people in clinical trials. I think there are around 100 companies trying for the race for the vaccine. But just because we have a vaccine does not mean everybody's going to get vaccinated. Imagine vaccinating the globe. And most likely it's going to be high-risk individuals. It's going to be seniors, it may be children, it may be immunosuppressant individuals. There is no cure. There are no uniformly effective meds. There are not enough tests, and we open too soon. Here's a fun fact about Roanoke, Virginia, and I did not know this. I was listening to the podcast Hidden Brain, and on the way from the Bay Area one evening, and Roanoke, Virginia is famous for one thing. I did not know. During the flu pandemic in 1918, Roanoke decided we're going to open up. The population of Roanoke was 60,000 at that point. About 4,000 people died. So opening up too soon, and that's what we're seeing now, these huge increases, people being indiscriminate and so forth. So I tell people, Tony's seen me do this in a little different fashion. There are two different ways of seeing the world. You could be, your world is upset right now. So you could see the opportunity in the crisis, or you're going to just want it to get back to normal. You're going to be everybody else. And in my world, we're not embracing the past. I mean, you have to embrace the change. This is one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs. It's what Steve Jobs said to John Scully. Do you want to sell sugar water the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? For a lot of us, for a lot of you, you are going to embark on a journey where you have a role to change the world. You're not going to be making sugar water. You may be making big sweeping changes within your career field or outside of your career field that will change the world. So here I'm going to talk about 3 types of thinking. And let me be the first to tell you that your education did not provide you with anything but the ability to think and think critically. The big missing thing in most recent graduates and alums, they're not thinking critically. They're not stepping out of a situation and say, does that make sense? Is that the best solution? They're not challenging the norm, right? The people that are challenging the norm we're seeing in the street, justifiably so. But your ability to be able to think critically is your most powerful career weapon. Your second most powerful career weapon is what you have in common with this guy, Steve Jobs. And, you know, most people think of Steve Jobs in terms of Silicon Valley, but he brought great sweeping change in how we think. I tell people he is the champion of all liberal arts thinkers. Liberal arts thinking is when you come out of an environment where you are exposed to different things, languages, art, music, history, political science, the things in your major, you learn to connect the dots. Steve Jobs was superior at being able to extract things out of things that did not fit together for change, sweeping change, the wealthiest company on the face of the earth, right? The most innovative company on the face of the earth. Steve Jobs came out of Reed College in Oregon. He took calligraphy, only paid for it once, but he took it 4 times. He sneak in the classes, take the class. But that's why he is considered the father of design thinking and user experience. So your power, even though I'm a woman in medicine and science, I leverage that liberal arts background. I am not a fan of uniformly STEM education without the balance in liberal arts. Here's an example of liberal arts thinking. Dr. James Rothman is Yale, Dr. Randy Sheckman, he's at University of California, Berkeley. These guys were engaged in a joint research venture studying how cell biology and how cells mutate. How does cancer metastasize, right? But Dr. Sheckman had an interest. They were working during their research. Dr. Sheckman had an interesting hobby. He loved to bake. So one Saturday morning in his kitchen in Berkeley, he was making bread and watched the yeast multiply. As if by magic, it occurred to him that cells feed off of the sugars that may be contained in a tumor. It was a long time coming, but they were awarded the 2013 Nobel Prize in Physiology. Liberal arts thinking, something totally out of their field that they could leverage to change the world. Then I have the third category. So we have critical thinking, we have liberal arts thinking, we have pandemic thinking. How does that intersect with everything else? As you do your career search, use your critical thinking skills, look at it, who got disrupted, who wasn't prepared, what will be affected, what will take its place. For instance, we all know everybody was on the hunt for toilet paper. Supply chains got disrupted. There was a separate supply chain for commercial toilet paper. There's a separate supply chain for consumer goods and toilet paper. Those two supply chains never intersected. They never talked to each other. And that had to be fixed. We were out, right? Nobody was going to work. So you couldn't access commercial goods. So how do we fix that? Even the mighty Walmart supply chain broke, right? Who wasn't prepared, right? Let's face it, Colorado College wasn't prepared, right? All of a sudden you had to go online. Since 1999, when I was on the Alumni Steering Committee, I was preaching online education. I have sat in online education courses with Stanford, Wharton. I just finished one at the Bloomberg School of Health with thousands and thousands of people connected across the globe with no effort, with excellent teaching. Okay, so what it's going to be affected and what will take its place, right? So the big opportunities, and I'm going to give you the obvious ones right now. Healthcare and medicine, especially public health. Biotech as it applies even to not only diseases, but other areas like agriculture and energy, biotech and energy. Huge opportunity in the environment. The pandemic, and because we're having frequent pandemics, a lot of that has to do with environment and climate change. Regardless of what Washington, D.C. does, I will guarantee you 4 states will go forward with the environment. I'm coaching a team out of Seattle now in improvements to solar energy, but it will be California, it will be Colorado, it will be Oregon, and it will be Washington State. So as you're looking for ways in that area, agriculture, our supply chain, our food chain broke. How do we move excess goods? Everybody saw potatoes being animals slaughtered in the field because there wasn't a way to get them to market. Anything in industrial area, manufacturing, supply chain management. You've probably been taught, if you were a business student at Roanoke College, about just-in-time inventory. I'm here to tell you it didn't work. Just-in-time inventory, just as you near the end of your supply, you get more, right? It did not work. The supply chain may not be offshored. I will guarantee you that we at my new startup will not offshore anything that we cannot control in the United States, period. That won't happen. In industry and manufacturing, you're probably going to see more 3D printing. We're going to print stuff, right? We're going to print stuff. Then almost any industry where data analysis is useful and required. Now, even the data you see this morning on COVID, it came from Johns Hopkins University. They are like the #1 public health university in the United States. They're extraordinary. Epidemiology, globally, they rank probably #1. Here are, now Tony has the link to CB Insights. You can go to CB Insights, retrieve the report, participate in their webinars. They're extraordinarily expensive to get full reports. But here are the few things. These are the top industries where their opportunity we're going to see. Using data, wearables, virtual reality. I was in telemedicine and telehealth starting in 2012 and was involved in all of that, and it never could get traction. Guess what? Doctors are doing visits using telehealth. There will be devices that will monitor, do the same monitoring as you get in your doctor's office. Senior care, of course, virtual fitness and gyms. We've already seen that with apps. Work, the nature of how we're working will change. There are going to be all kinds of technologies. I'm seeing them now that are being developed to enable ease of work, remote work, education. The three top areas for funding in Silicon Valley are ed tech, fintech, financial tech, and HR tech. Your classroom will be optional. You do not have to be on the ground. For most of the major universities, you're going to use remote learning. You're going to be able to interact. There will be online courses. That's a reality now. I had a remote internship with an intern from Ronald College and one from Colorado State. Colorado State has what they call their third campus. Their third campus is an online course campus. You get your education remotely. Excellent. Manufacturing, here we go. 3D, automation, 3D printing, industry automation, robotics. I participate, it will be this Friday again. It's called the Leader to Leader. And for numerous reasons, they're dispersed across all industry areas. But the primary thing is, how can we get people in a lab? How can we create prototypes? How can we assemble circuit boards? How can we do chips? And these companies are going to be turning to robotics, industry automation. Retail, I will probably never go in a store to grocery shop again. I order my groceries online. My groceries get delivered same day or next day. I don't have to take time to do that. Customer service, it's going to be virtual, and we're going to do cloud call centers. I am consulting with a company that's out of healthcare and out of the environment, and they insist they have on the ground call centers. They insist people come to an office for no particular reason. All my folks at American Medical Response, when I ran a call center, were somewhere else. They were remote. This company insists their model has been disrupted, and all their call center people are now remote. Finance, contactless. This is the thing that this company has tried. It will not face branchless banking. If you belong to USAA, you will know there are no branches, right? You can have access to ATMs. Everything's branchless banking. They're going to teach, companies like USAA will teach traditional financial institutions how to do branchless banking. Security, high internet usage, data generation, we're going to have to be faster. Apple, even this week, has broken with their relationship with Intel because they cannot get the type of chip that they need. So a 15-year alliance has been broken because they could not deliver the goods. Entertainment, you're going to do more virtual. I told, maybe it was Tony yesterday, we were talking, we're farther apart, but closer together. I'm going to do a 2-day workshop by Washington, D.C. On partnering opportunities with the National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health. 2 days, I would have not taken that time to go. So we're closer together. It's enabling better. Before the pandemic, you did not have this interaction with the college. Now with the pandemic, you have more interaction. Okay, food services, we all know about that. There will be cloud kitchens. There is a link I forwarded. You won't remember the link, but it's CB Insights. Take a look at, also there is organization in Palo Alto, Institute for the Future. I like McKinsey. I don't particularly embrace their research, but any website that will give you a look at other things. And the thing to me, I use this, this is the fearless girl of Wall Street, right? This is not a time to wimp. This is not a time to sit in your parents' basement. This is a time to get out there and face it. One of the most critical things I learned out of emergency medicine is focus. My CEO at American Medical Response used to go around saying, where's the calmest place? Where's the calmest place in an emergency? And we knew what the answer was: the emergency room. And in the emergency room, you focus, you let the little stuff go, you focus on the big stuff, you solve for the big, because you know that if you lose your focus, you're dead in the water. You lose that patient. So you'll learn to let any little things go. It is not so important to do that barbecue if you're saving a life. It is not so important that you see your boyfriend, your girlfriend, that had a great, or travel to a great distance. What is important that you're fearless in the way you approach your life. So now I'll take questions. I'm going to stop the screen sharing.
Susie, one that goes along well with what you were just talking about don't sit there and do nothing, and
That's right.
don't be fearless. What types of internships would you recommend to help with furthering the students and graduates' education in order for them to have success, greater success in finding a job after graduation?
All right, so there's several things. I think you can look on the company's website. You can look in your target industries websites. There are a number of industries that will take on an internship. Number two is there are lots of longer term contracting opportunities that lead to permanent. This is not like the crash of 2008. It was caused by irresponsibility in both situations, but this thing will gradually come back. The problem is that we haven't controlled it, where it's going to take longer. So companies like Adecco, Experius, Aquint, any number of companies that will do a contract, even full, large scale organizations will do an internship. Most people are looking for more continuing thing. Now, I will encourage you, you have access to websites like Coursera, like iTunes U, any major university that's online, you can get skill building. One of the hot skill building things, Johns Hopkins is running a course on contact tracing. That is a huge opportunity, and the pay varies depending on the state, but every single state is having to, okay, so somebody, okay. Every single state is offering contact tracing. Tony, does that answer it, or?
I'll jump in.
There you go.
There you go, Tony.
Screen hidden. Yes, that does. And you did bring up a point too about looking for contract opportunities, as well as looking at some of the firms that you mentioned. Some of those agencies will have temp to perm. I know I'm getting a huge number of emails these days from temporary agencies that are hiring to fulfill current needs, but they also are going to look at transitioning that person to a permanent job as soon as possible if things go well. So,
right. And things to remember when we have 68 senior level people. And when I say senior level, I mean people with experience. It has nothing to do with their age. And there are key things that job seekers have to remember. You're not obligated, age questions are off limits. In California, you cannot, and 16 other states, I think, you cannot ask salary history. Don't cough up your salary history. That prevents discrimination. Don't, if you're on your LinkedIn profile, if you have your college year on your LinkedIn profile, get it out of there, because they're going to look to see what year. And if you're a mature person, you don't want the age discrimination. Don't associate your college year. And I've had a discussion about this with the college. Your college year that you graduated is absolutely immaterial.
Susie, this is Sally. I had a question that came up.
Okay.
I was just, if you could expound a little bit on, I think this is so important for our younger folks, on the value of internships as a complement to your coursework. I think not always, I don't think, our students always appreciate the value of an internship. And
well,
especially at this time.
The college needs to bring that more to the forefront. Tony and I've had that discussion many, many times. But I do work, when I work with Tony, I've taken interns from Colorado State, Virginia Tech, Ronald College. Let me think who here. Might it be University of California. They get live projects. They get real stuff, but they do it for a grade. There are some internships you do for non-graded, or you do an internship for grade, but nobody, even if there are no internships offered, I always recommend that, hey, what does it hurt? You write a contact, you find a contact on LinkedIn, and you contact them and say, can I be an intern? Now, internships right now, right, they still have college loans to pay off, right? People are looking for jobs, and I think to encourage somebody to do an internship as a waiting strategy may not, it has to be an individual decision. But I think career services has been much undervalued at school. And Tony is just like one of the best career services professionals I've worked with, even if I do know her. But
I know she appreciates you tooting her horn, and I agree. She does amazing work, and I know that all the opportunities that she discusses with students and new grads, she's always good at reminding them of the myriad of opportunities and how each one is so important. There was another question. This one, actually, Susie, was a question I had. And I'll just put it in context. I have family that have decided to move out of the big city after their COVID experience, or are going to go, moving to a less city environment. Do you see some trends and good opportunities in real estate related fields?
Real estate's going to have a hard go of it right now. And moving out of the big city does not solve your problem, because COVID is there too. And the rural areas, just look at what's happening in Arizona, Mississippi, Alabama, parts of Georgia. You're not exempt because you're moving out, right? That's another fallacy, piece of fiction. Real estate is going to have a tough go. I think the figures yesterday were that we've had more mortgage defaults than a record since 2011. And oh, I see another question here. So I don't, you know, it would depend on what kind of real estate you do. If you could do it remote, but that's kind of hard to say, right?
And then the
Okay.
question that was emailed in that you just popped up, Susie, how would you get hired as a 59-year-old today?
Don't tell them you're 59, right? Why tell them you're 59? Why is there such a preoccupation with age? You're going to craft your value around your background and experience, right? Why is that a factor, right? Every single person on my team at Midar Medical is over 50. Every single one, well, with the exception of Dr. Brett Nix at Wake Forest University. He's 40. But it depends on the field, and you have to craft your value statement, your proposition around that. Don't be so preoccupied with your age that you get off track with the goal. You know, startups love older senior executives. Startups love you because you have the experience that somebody that's much younger. When the boys at Google founded Google, they brought Eric Schmidt. The investors brought Eric Schmidt because he was a mature executive. He brought certain skills that others do not. And there are areas of the country that, like here, we just don't think about it, right? We don't think about somebody's age. We see their value.
I think that's very important.
Yeah.
You know, evaluate yourself and what skills is an employer looking for, and
Exactly.
what do you have to offer them? And like you said, you know, not approach it at the beginning like, oh, they're never going to take me because I'm 59 or whatever that situation might be. But this is what I have to offer, and I'm going to put myself out there. And I mean, worst case scenario, that's all they can say is no. But if you don't try to sell yourself, you're selling yourself short.
I've gotten every big ass job I ever had over 50, at 50 and above. I've done 2 startups over 50, right? I founded a startup in 2009, in the middle of the Great Recession. I just founded a startup in the middle of an even bigger recession, right? So that's what I'm talking about, being fearless. Don't tell them whether you're married. Don't tell them whether you have kids. That's all irrelevant stuff, right? You don't tell them your age. You don't have to tell them you graduate. And when I teach graduate school, my grad students, my MBA students will panic the last semester because they don't have a 4.0 or some ridiculous thing. Nobody asks anybody about what's your grade point average in your MBA, right? They might ask you as an undergrad, but nobody is. They're going to say, what can you bring to the table? You got your MBA? A-okay, right? If that's a requirement. I had one woman come interview with me one time, and she said, I have to be honest with you, I'm pregnant. And I looked at her and said, I have to be honest with you, you have a brain. And that's the only thing I'm concerned with, right? So we make these excuses and put these fences around our own experience. It's kind of self-defeating behaviors, right? It's like, go do it. Let me tell you a good story about the impossibility. When President Obama and we passed the Affordable Care Act, 2010, the mandate was to build an immense website where people could go buy insurance. Now, a lot of that, our progress has been set back. We're going to fix it. But a lot of our progress has been was set back. But in 2014, we launched healthcare.gov. If you remember 2014, it was a disaster. Everybody panicked. It was a disaster in access. We had hired a Canadian company because we wanted to emulate the Canadian system, I suppose, and to rebuild that website, to write the technology so that, well, it was a disaster because our landscape is much more, they failed to understand the landscape. So I remember I was living directly in the Bay then, and the call went out to Andy Slavitt. You'll see him on any number. You'll see him on New York Times, Washington Post, any number of the. Andy Slavitt was with United Health. Andy Slavitt assembled a team from Silicon Valley, and we pulled people out of Cisco, Oracle, you name it, everybody. We worked 24/7. How long do you think it took us to get that thing built? Any guesses? The Canadians took 4 years. Silicon Valley took just under 90 days. So it's about seeing where the opportunity is, where they're just saying, screw it, we're going for it, right? We can do it. And versus where we are now with people wringing their hands and worrying about it. Look, this thing eventually will be under control, and but there's a world of opportunity there, right? Persistence counts.
That's right. I just want to remind everyone as we get close to the end of our time here, if you would like the link that Susie had in her presentation to the CB Insights research, I do have that I can email you. If you want to reach out to me directly through email, it's McLawhorn, McLawhorn @roanoke.edu, and I will be glad to provide that to you. Again, it's McLawhorn @roanoke.edu. Susie, I think that's all the questions we have, and we really appreciate you taking time today.
You're very welcome.
I know
people can connect with me on LinkedIn. You have my contact information. No question is off bounds.
And Susie is very responsive. She's a very busy woman, but she's also very responsive. Do keep in mind the time zone distance because or difference, because you know what is 3 o'clock now here is only 12 o'clock to her. So she's
we're not quite
for lunch.
I do not answer random phone calls. I always respond, get something on the calendar because I'm totally booked usually.
Okay, and I'll toss it back to Sally to close us out.
Right. Well, Tony, and we will put the link that Susie shared with us in the on the YouTube page as well.
Okay.
So that folks can readily find it there as well. Susie, my 2 takeaways: forward thinking and fearless. I love it.
That's right, ma'am.
This has been great. This has been so helpful.
I want you all to think about us as we pursue a medical device in the COVID space. You know, when you've got several thousand people dying a day, it's extraordinarily important we get to market with this thing. I have 2 great physician co-founders.
Wow.
And thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to all our viewers, I hope that you'll continue to join us for our NOKELive events. As we finish the month of June, we have one more tomorrow at noon with another alum, Robin Wassman, and she presents on the topic of a recruiter's guide to resumes, virtual interviews, and more. And then next Monday, June 29th at 7:30 p.m., we're going to shift gears and have a fun night. We're going to have a ice hockey night with a discussion of
That'll
the
be fun.
film Miracle and a look at our college's hockey program, past, present, and future. So again, we'll be doing this every week this summer, and I'm sure as we move forward, we will have many more in the future. Thank
That
you all
was
so
great.
much for joining us.
Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.